So let's do some talk about spectrum analysis. And we need to do a little comparison. Ekahau just a couple weeks ago announced their new Sidekick, so we can compare Sidekick. Cognio had their own card and then got bought by Cisco and took their cards and put them inside APs. So we also call that clean air. NetScout has a Spectrum XT, DBX from MetaGeek, and they also have a 2.4, an Osseum Y-Pry, little one that plugs into your iOS. Or Nuts About Nets has a little thing called RF Explorer, a little handheld version. The things we need to think about are how do they do what they do, which is capturing RF and turning it into something we can see. What ranges do they work in? What's their bandwidth? How the term's bin size. What's the slicing time? How fast does it go? And how do they calculate duty cycle? So I looked at a bunch of these and came up with those columns, Sidekick, Cognio, XT, etc. And you can see that most of them, either all but the MetaGeek 2.4, do basically 2, 4, and 5 in some type of ranges. We're the target audience, so there are ranges, which is 2, 4, and 5 gig where we do our things. The bandwidth, though, is the place you can really see a huge difference. From over at the Osseum Y-Pry, it's taking big, huge 333 kilohertz chunks. I'm glad you're taking pictures, but I will give this slide deck to Matthew, so they'll post it on the website as well. I know it's small text for that. But the Nuts About Nets is over at 800K. That kind of tells you it's like, it lets you see something, but not really. It's the resolution of what are we actually looking at when we want to see these things, and to see. For any interfering device, it has some characteristics. One is what's the shape. The other is what is its pattern, what kind of a duty cycle does it give over time. And if we don't have the resolution, it's kind of hard to see what shapes are. I didn't even put on another column on the other side of this. Ubiquiti used to sell this little, I think it was about $70 for a little NIC that was a spectrum analyzer. Its kilohertz was in megahertz. Wasn't even in the same category. But as we get back here, we get smaller and smaller and smaller. We get finer and finer density, which allows us to see things. The second is sweep time. How fast is it looking at each one of those bins? Now this takes processing power, which also means cost. But the faster we can see things, it allows us to visualize things that happen very quickly. Bluetooth's hopping very quickly. And if we're not capturing at the right speed, we'll totally miss Bluetooth. So most of these can't even see a Bluetooth even though they exist. Well, our main job with a spectrum analyzer is to convert a frequency domain. I put a tuning fork up here and an oscilloscope. A tuning fork is sound. Doo, makes a sound. But we can, with an oscilloscope, take that sound, which is a very slow cycle, so slow that humans can interact with it, and turn it into something visual. We actually see a curve. That's the job of a spectrum analyzer. We want to take something that goes so fast, 2.4 billion times a second. And as a human, we don't have any of our senses, touch, taste, feel, smell, hear. We cannot interact with radio waves at all. So we need a spectrum analyzer to stop time, because it's so fast, and convert it to something we can see. We're going to convert a complex waveform, bottom right corner, into its base components. Now this technique is called a Fourier transform, and as soon as I say the word Fourier, everyone's math from college just kind of goes, I don't want to talk about it anymore. But that's what it's doing. It's doing a Fourier transform, very fast, going to convert a waveform into its component parts. If we plot the component parts on a frequency domain, we're taking something that takes time, say a heartbeat monitor, thump, 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 thump. Time is the horizontal axis. We do a freeze time with the fast Fourier transform, convert it into its component parts, plot it on a frequency domain. Time domain, frequency domain. We just froze time. By freezing time, we now can visualize something that happens too fast for us to see. That's what a spectrum analyzer is going to do. We can convert things that show up on the left are what you might see in an oscilloscope, on the right are what you're going to see in frequency domain. Tons of things. The little timer's counting down. So what are the things we want to see? there's a bunch of different things that we can visualize that are in 2.4 gig. So rather than just talk about them, let's show you. What I have here is a series of videos. All were conducted with a Metageek DBX and an Eckhouse Sidekick, exact same distance away from whatever the interfering device was. So we went through a whole series of these, each of them same distance, same orientation, and we just want to compare speed and what they look like. So on this one, this is just a wireless camera. You can see over on the right side, it's kind of got a camera shape. It's a little shifted over. Top of these are Sidekick. The bottom is Metageek. And it looks something like, get my mouse. Oh, sorry, I was on my screen. So what we're looking at here is, in real time, both of these two were synchronized. Here's another one. A different camera, you can obviously see the camera. Look at the difference in resolution and speed between the two of those. Both versions, whether you're running Metageek or Sidekick, allow you to see there's a shape. The color coding, the way Eckhouse does it, is as a percentage of total time. So if I have my window that I'm looking at 30 seconds, if I've received a signal for 100% of the 30 seconds, it's black. As the percentage is lower, you get to the lighter and lighter colors. Let's try a different one here. There's a couple cameras. Here's a baby monitor. You can see things on the top that are kind of missed on the bottom. The sweep time on the bottom is much slower. These look really good when they're big. So sorry, they're in a... Here's another one. This is some headphones. Note the little teeny things that we're seeing that are popping up there very fast down here. We're getting the information, just not in the same real-time analysis. Pick another one. Let's pick a fun one here. Oh, here's a presentation remote that I had. The only way to make it work is you had to go click every time you go click, 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 click. And you can't see it down below, but it's going to show up above because there's these little fast spikes that just happen. Down here, they're just kind of lost in the mist. Up above, you can see where they come out. That's because every time I click, it's just a really fast pulse. And the slow sweep time of the Metageek doesn't allow me to capture the things that are happening in real time. But the one I really wanted to show, oh, here's a jammer. Sorry, this can't be a jammer because that would be illegal. This is a RF noise source. But note, you can see even little teeny edges there. Down here, it just looks like a big flat thing. We're seeing the difference. Also, the resolution difference, just from there to there, we're picking up about a 15 dB more sensitivity, which will allow you to see things that you might have missed because you're using a different one. This is a fun one. This is okay, this one really is a jammer. A HackRF device with something called a Portapack strapped to it, running a piece of software called Havoc, and it does this really fun thing. Now, can you see up at the top the little things screaming by? Those are little, what are they, 10K? 10K wide little slices that are happening really, really fast. Pretty obvious up above. Down here, you're like, yeah, something's happening. You would have missed it. So the goal here is just to say, when you're looking at any kind of spectrum analyzer, you want to review what's its bandwidth, its resolution, how tight of a thing can it see, how fast is it doing, and then compare that to the cost. The more money you spend, you'll get higher resolution, faster sweep times, and be able to see different things. Lower money might be enough to see what you need to see. Even really bottom end, terrible wide bandwidth still allows you to see things like microwave ovens and wireless cameras, but not as effective in seeing the higher things. So That's all we got. Cut it, Ben.